Hiya folks, and welcome back to Fishing with Den. So today we're going to be talking about one of the cheapest and simplest and actually one of the most effective methods of fishing you can possibly have. And that is the humble bread punch. Now don't worry, this isn't going to be any kind of complicated video on all the latest ways to use it, like for dobbing or for hair rigging or anything like that. This is pretty much just a basic video to just talk to you about what these things are, how they work, and how to catch fish with them. So I suppose the first thing then is, what is it? Well, basically a piece of stick, in this case a plastic one, with a piece of brass in the end of it, and it's got a hollowed out nose area, as you can see there. They come in a set. These ones are from Matrix, and they go from 4, 6, 8 and 10 millimeters to suit the size of bait you want to do. And all you have, as I said before, is just a simple hollow in the end there, and you may be able to see this, but there's a little slot just in there. Don't worry, I'll be going through all this in more detail later on. But really, all you do is you get a slice of bread, put it on, punch out a piece of bread, and then put your hook in the slot and put it on your hook. And that's it. It's as simple as that. So, these are the basic ones that you had, years and years ago, even when I was a kid. I think I had a set of Drennan punches with wooden handles on them for probably about 30 years before I came down here to Australia. Got rid of everything, unfortunately, when I came, thinking I wouldn't be able to do any fishing. And of course, here I am, fishing for carp. Anyway, that's the basic idea of the bread punch. But then you get this sort of thing. This is what the Preston Innovations people call a commercial punch set. And really, all this is a box that you put your bread in. In fact, let me grab some bread down here. As I say, this is one of the cheapest possible ways to do it. The bread you should use, by the way, if you're in England, is Warburton's Toasty, tried and tested, and it is the best for doing this sort of thing. I'm not going to go into the details why. There's loads of videos on the internet about that. Make sure you seal your bread back up afterwards. Keep it in a cool, shaded place. So put your bread into the box. On the top of this one, I've got 6, 8, 10 and 12 millimeter punches, but these are slightly different. These are a bit more sophisticated, and you'll see why now. Still got the same sort of hole idea with a slot in the end of it, but these are spring loaded, so they push the bait out. And if I show you how that one works, take the punch, just simply put it in, create a hole, and push that in. There you go. That's your punch bread. Now you can just squeeze that down a little bit to make it a bit more doughy, because they are fairly buoyant, but I mean generally it's going to take 2 or 3 or even 4 of those things to float a hook unnaturally. But really the basics are the same, whether it's this type here or the spring loaded ones. There you go. For this one, I'll have to get a hook out and take it out of the punch. But back to this one here, a bit more sophisticated, as we said. What you can do is you can lock this one. I push that on down like that, oops, and lock it. It's now pushed it right forward. So now I can do exactly what I did with the other one, and I could put the hook in there and take it out. Or I can just push again and do that. So if you wanted, for example, to have multiple bits of bait, I'll just get this back to where I was going with it, like that. 1, 2, 3, and then I can push those out, and I can have a bigger chunk of bait on the hook. And really, that's all there is to the bread punch. The only downside to these things is if you have to pay for them. These things are actually quite cheap. They cost about £6 for the set. So if you don't want to do that, you can go with the full-blown commercial punch set with the box, and these things are going to set you back something like £19. There's a Guru one as well. I think that's £21. I'm sure there's probably other people that make them, but there's an easy way to do this. All you need is something flat to punch it out on. So you can take a bait box like that and do exactly what I've just done. keep the lid on when it's not in use, and probably put a bit of black tape over the holes just to make sure it doesn't allow it to breathe, because it will dry out. If it does dry out, you can just use one of these atomizers, give it a quick squeeze, just a very quick one, and that'll bring it back to life again. If it gets too dry, just get another slice out. Okay, if you really want to be tight about this, you can go out and just literally get something which is hollow and around about 6 or 8 millimeters in diameter. This is a piece of modelling tubing or something or other, don't know what it was, but I use them for floats. All I've done is cut the end off, and again, if I do that, there it is, and you've got your piece of bait. That costs virtually nothing. If you haven't got one of these, a broken rod, the tip section or something like that, not too wide, if you cut those off, they're actually quite good as well for doing exactly the same thing. But that way, it's literally costing you nothing for the equipment, isn't it? So we've got the hook bait, and what do we now use for ground bait? Again, it's exactly the same thing, just some of the bread out of the Warburton's packet. If you want to make liquidized bread, there's lots of videos out there on the internet showing you how to do it. But basically, chop off all the crusts, chuck it into a blender, and you end up with this kind of thing here. Now, I can't get Warburton's bread. I have to make do with this local stuff, which isn't as good by any means. So rather than use liquidized bread, what I do, and I've done a video on this, I'll stick a link up to it now. I call it an alternative to liquidized bread, or my alternative. And all I do, send the wife out, get a 500-gram bag of breadcrumbs from the local supermarket. Then again, use either the atomizer or just drip some water in, keep mixing it around. It's all in this video up here, so I'm not going to go into any depth there, but that's my way of doing it. So just while we're on the subject of cost, just a final thing on that. I looked last night, and a Warburton's loaf in somewhere like, I think it was Tesco's, is something like £1.60. Alternatively, you could do what I did, just steal some out of the bread bin and use one of those packs of breadcrumbs. That pack cost me probably about £1. The slices of bread were basically free, obviously, and that's it. And in fact, this is what's left of a session I had last week. I was doing one when I wasn't filming, and this is what's left. So I just put it in the freezer and got it out today, and it's going to work fine. Yeah, there's odd sort of little clumpy bits in there because, to be honest, I had to just damp it down a little bit because it had sat in the sun for probably 4 or 5 hours last week. What you do though is cover it up with a cloth like that, and you're going to basically get to a point where it is going to dry out, but it's going to take a long time to do it. So now we've got bait and we've got ground bait. I suppose the next thing is, let's talk about tackle. And again, I'm going to use a pole today, but you can do this with a Waggler as well. I've got a 0.4 of a gram float. I've got approximately 30 inches of water, maybe 32 inches of water. I've put the main shots up under there because I only want 1 or 2 dropping shots. These are number 8s, entirely up to you what you use. I'm not going to go too fine. I'm on a size 16 hook. And this one happens to be, hopefully you can see that, a B611. So remember this one? I use it on the big, whoops, got myself tangled up, on the big punch here. But all I'm going to do, take that hook, put it in through the slot. I'm hoping you can see this as I'm doing it. And that is literally how you hook it. There you go. Okay, very straightforward and simple. Now I'm not going to be using the 10mm today, I'm just using that because it's big enough to show you. I'm probably going to use a 6mm punch, and I'm going to use these, the ones out of the Preston box. So I'll just take that, punch it out. I could do it the way I've just shown you, but it's just as easy to just put it on the hook like that. Now, why am I using a silver hook? Well, some people like to use a silver hook because they're using bread and they think it kind of disguises it. Personally, I don't give a damn what colour it is. I just happen to have these B611s, which are size 16, and as you probably know, I generally don't fish with size 16 hooks. But because we're just coming out of winter, oh, by the way, look, t-shirt today for the first time. So really, all I'm going to do here is just use the hook that came to hand. Happens to be that. Again, if you're fishing and it's a bit warmer, you can use a 14 or whatever. Just match the size of the bread to the hook you're using. So in this case, this one has 6mm, works fine. Now I've set up to fish pretty much dead depth, which means that that is on the bottom, and obviously that's just on the surface, only just. And pretty much that's it. Now, with regard to feeding, if I grab out a pot, let's just take that one. Don't know whose this is. This is I think it's a matrix pot. Oops. Put that on the top. These come apart, so I'll just put that back together again. There we are. And literally, we just put some bait in there and off we go. And all we're going to do is grab some of the ground bait. Now you could do this with a waggler as well as the pole. I'm just going to take a smallish piece, just give it a tiny little squeeze, put it in the pot. Again, you'll be seeing me doing this as we go along, so it's straightforward stuff anyway. And of course, say that, and I've caught a piece of grass as we've gone out. If you squeeze this a little bit more, you can throw it by hand, or you could catapult it. But I'm, as I say, going to be fishing with a pole today, so I'm going to go out to about 13 metres. And hopefully you're getting this on that one down there. Okay, and just literally drop it in like that. If I haven't caught that with this camera, I'll do it again shortly so you can see what's what. But really, we're now fishing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this camera back so you can get a better shot of what I'm doing. I'll obviously pull the rod in before I do that. So back in a sec and we'll get on to the fishing-y part of this. Okay, that's the camera's all set up. I'll just punch out some bait. Oh, by the way, when these Preston Innovations boxes come, if you push down on the little knob here, this thing, it flips the lid open. But I've had this for quite a while and that's broken and has been for quite a long time. So how robust they are, can't really say. All I can tell you is that mine doesn't work anymore. So, bait on the hook. If you don't squeeze it too much, this will swell up quite nicely on the hook. I'm going to keep the pole pot on because I'm going to feed through the pole pot today. And also the reason I'm fishing with a 0.4 of a gram float is because it's supposed to be getting to a wind strength of 30 kilometers an hour, which is 20 miles an hour today. And yeah, yeah, right, okay. So as usual, so far they're completely wrong and it's dead calm. But if the wind comes, it's supposed to be coming that way, which is northwest. We shall see. Right, I'm hoping I've got that picked up on the screen down here. Just make sure that's right. And we just now wait for a bite. There we go. Right, best wife in the world just bought me a coffee down, so happy days. Better put my hat on, I suppose. First decently warm day we've had. First day to put the old t-shirt on, as I say. And I didn't come out till later. Time now is 11:43. Yeah, okay. I never came out till about 10ish, but by the time I'd set myself up and done all the preamble here, it's taken me this long. So 11:45, and we'll probably give it 3 or 4 hours. Got some sunglasses around here somewhere, which I've put down and now can't find. So we'll get those in a sec. Oh, is that going to be a bite? It looks like it, doesn't it? Yeah. Decent fish. Taken off over there somewhere. Try and get them out of the swim. Why do they always want to go back to exactly where you just hooked them? Scare all the others. If I'm right, that started off with a bit of a bob and ended up as a lift bite. Huh. So it must have risen up in the water a little bit. Okay, not huge. The fish in here probably, I don't know, up to 8–10 pounds I suppose. Come on fish. There we go. Not bad for the first fish, eh? Probably, let's have a look, a couple of pounds. Just about to get my hands around his shoulders. And he's hooked quite neatly in the lip. That was a good start, wasn't it? And in fact, the reason for the lift bite, my shot has actually just dropped down there to within an inch of the hook. Anyway, good start, wasn't it? I'm just going to move that shot back up a little bit. Take it up sort of 6 inches. Just fix it a bit more firmly. And away we go. Just make sure I'm recording on everything still. Oh, that's about 10 minutes to get the first bite. Just a bit of a squeeze on the hook. Okay. I'll probably feed again shortly. I just want to see how we go first of all, because it was 5 degrees again in the night last night, so it's pretty cold, even though today's quite warm, and that's why I left it as usual to come out a bit later. Not in the fact that I'm getting lazy these days. So let's see if we can produce a few fish. I've mislaid my sunglasses somewhere. I've got to get the best wife in the world to come down with another pair, so hopefully she'll turn up in a second or two. Oh yes. Well, seems the fish are willing to feed today, which is good news. Around the corner here it's actually very, very shallow. It's probably only about a foot deep. Pole's getting hot. But you could certainly have a good day just doing what we're doing now. I am going to feed after this one. Again, you're just feeding to the bites as normal. Got to be careful. This is a natural venue, so they don't always respond to loads and loads of bait going in. There we are. Same sort of size again, probably about 2 pounds. Oops, just caught me microphone. You sure we're okay on that? Pretty much exactly the same size, although this one's swallowed it a bit. There we are, look. Very similar sort of size. Oops. The wife's just brought my spare sunglasses down, and as she arrived she said, "There's your sunglasses down there." So she's come all this way across here again, had the coffee and now the sunglasses, and she's gone away not too happy, I'm afraid. I searched everywhere for those and they're literally just down there. My excuse is they were in the shade and I couldn't see them and I'm old. It's the only excuse I've got, so I'm going with it. Anyway, we're catching 1 or 2 fish. So we'll stay with the 6mm bread punch, put on a hook, and this time what I'm going to do, I'm going to feed these breadcrumbs. Normally you can just put your pot in like that. In fact, I'll do that just now. But if you find that awkward, literally, all you do, you can do this really loose like that. Just give it a slight tamp down. As I said before, you can squeeze these things and you can throw them. But because it's only about 32 inches deep here, I'm actually going to just pot it in loose so it'll fall through the water in a cloud and spread out as it goes down. Right, just do that. There we go, that's it all come out in a nice sort of syrupy, I say syrupy, it's not syrupy, it's just breadcrumbs. And they're going to break up on the way down. And off we go again. Wash, rinse, repeat, as I keep saying. Make sure you keep covering up the ground bait part of it, the liquidized bread alternative. As I say, that will dry out quite quickly when it's sunny. Don't worry too much. If you've got one of these atomizer bottles, you can bring it back to life with just a couple of quick squirts and a bit of a stir around. But really, you wouldn't want it to dry out. Just while we're waiting for another bite, I think I mentioned at the start that in addition to it only being 32 inches out there, it's probably only about a foot deep just in front of me. It's too shallow right in front of the reeds. Sorry. There we go. Whoa. Maybe I need a 14 hook today after all, eh? But that's one way to get a massive tangle around the end of your tip, isn't it? It doesn't get much worse than that, does it? Oh wow, look at that. Still, it won't take long to get that out. But what I will do, I'll just mention what I was going to say. Just down here, it's not very deep at all. So again, I'm just going to take a small ball of this punch crumb and I'm going to put it at about a sort of top 2 plus 2, and I'm going to give it a couple of them down there. Just a quick squeeze, nothing too much. You don't want to squeeze too hard or you can end up with paste sort of about there-ish for later on, especially once I've untangled this. And this won't actually take too long, it's just twisted around a few times. But that's just one of the things that happens, isn't it, when you're fishing? You get tangles. Quick tip on tangles if you're new to fishing, never pull these loops tight. If you pull loops tight, you end up with a knot, because that's what a knot is, just a series of loops pulled tight. So you'll never see me pulling anything really hard, unless I'm trying to get a knot, of course. A little bit of a pain around this connector on the end, but once I've got it free of that, it should all fall apart. There we go. So what looked like a horrible knot turned out to be not too bad after all. Just get these last couple of twists out of it. Oops. Go round and around a couple of times. And there we are, we're sorted. And in fact, I've just done that and it's pulled out the eye from the side there. So I've got to re-rig after all that. But anyway, it won't take long to do that. I'll put another one on now. And in fact, I think I'm going to go to a size 14 hook. Let's put that on one side down here till later, and I'll pick it up before I go, take it home and I'll repair that one. Anyway, got that bait in down there. I think while I'm at it, I'll put another little bit of bait in through the pot. It's only a small pot. As I say, I think this one's a matrix. I don't really care what the make is. I'm mentioning it so that if you want one of these, you'll know at least what to look for. And I think I'm going to go to a 14 hook this time, because they don't seem to be being shy. There we are. And I like big hooks. No finesse me whatsoever, eh? Okay, got the new rig on. Got a size 14 B911 hook on there. And this time I've noticed that the bread is actually pretty sort of dry, like toast. I might get away with just giving it a quick squiz like that. Not too much. Maybe get away with it this time. Just put some on the hook, see how it goes. But if you bring 4 or 5 slices of bread with you, that's going to last you for a reasonable amount of the day. That's feeling not too bad at all, but if this was a match, I'd have changed that straight away. Rig's exactly the same as before, and I will put a little bit of punch crumb in. But you may have noticed that since I've been putting this rig on, the wind's got up a little bit. As I say, it's supposed to be getting up to about 30 kilometers an hour today, so hence the reason for the slightly heavier rig. For a 30 inches of water, you'd probably use less than that normally. Oh, and the other thing I should mention is that you may have noticed when I was undoing that tangle that I'm using the plastic Stonfo type connectors. I do occasionally get comments about using that. And the reason I use it is quite simply because of the arthritis. It's easier to get the loop onto that when you've got arthritis in your thumbs than it is with a Dacronector or a Dacron connector. The other thing is, I don't fish shallow and I don't slap, which is also another reason why you wouldn't use one of those connectors. The fish here just don't come up in the water, so there's none of that slapping or really shallow fishing. So it doesn't cause me any problems. It actually means I can use it more easily. So that's the reason I do it. I'm just going to keep an odd little piece of bait going in down at this sort of shallow area here. It may or may not produce, but hey, if I catch a few more fish out of there at the end, that works for me. It's not like a commercial where you wait till the last sort of hour or two and then you go in whole hog for it. Over here they don't see bait, so they don't know to come in for it, and so therefore you're just sort of building the inside swim from scratch. Oh, and for anyone that's wondering about that comment that I just made about they don't see bait, it's because hardly anybody, apart from us English expats, fish for carp over here. The Aussies hate them, mostly. Some are, you know, coming around to our way of thinking because they're a really good sports fish. But generally, the Aussies fish with lures for their own native fish and sea fish. So as I say, I very rarely see anybody else fishing on the ponds I'm fishing at, unless I'm fishing a match with other Brits. Had a bite. Got the float dotted down quite well, so you know, I think it might just be, it's hardly anything, but yeah, literally, that didn't even go under, did it? Maybe I've got decent eyesight after all. Only a tiny fish, look. Probably one of those crucian lookalikes I've mentioned in the past. They're all over the place here. That really is tiny, isn't he? We'll net him anyway. There we go, look. Crucian lookalike. Not as gold as a crucian, but very similar in body and very similar in the way they give bites as well, and the way they fight. Lovely fish though. This time I am going to change the bait in the box there, and I always just keep mine in the bag it comes in from the shop. I also tend to leave the crust on top, because again that stops the top piece from dehydrating. Lovely and soft there. But as always, make sure you do it up. You can store it differently to this if you like, but this is just my way of doing it. Put that down there for later. Maybe feed that to the ducks or something, or take it home. I'm going to stay with the 6mm punch because I'm catching fish on it. But later on, we'll see how things go. I might just still end up going to a bigger or possibly a smaller one. Unlikely to go with a smaller one, but certainly if they start feeding well, or if I want to try something different, it wouldn't hurt to try a bigger piece of bait on the hook. And a size 14's a decent sized hook. Fish over here aren't tackle shy at all, so not worried about that in the slightest. Okay, time for a cup of tea in a minute, I think. Probably been going for about, I don't know, half, 3/4 an hour now, I suppose. And I guess. That really is dotted down. I may actually bring it up a little bit because I'm not sure how well that zoom camcorder down there is going to pick that up. I'll try and just get a little bit more out so you can see bites if you aren't already seeing them. It's a funny old thing over here about different ponds. Some will respond to quite a lot of bait, and some, if you put a lot of bait in, it just kills it stone dead. So you just have to feel your way in. I've taken the shot off and replaced it with a smaller one, just so we can see a bit more of the float for you. I could just about see it okay, but I'm not convinced that the camera could. So hopefully this will make it easier for that zoom camera to see the bites. Just going to put a little tiny piece of feed in again, and I am literally feeding it pretty much loose now. A little bit of a squeeze just at the point where I put it in, and that's just to stop it dropping out when I'm shipping out. There we go, look. You probably can't see that, but there's a nice cloud coming up on the drop there. And in 2.5 feet of water, that's going to form something like that when it gets to the bottom, probably. Yeah, that's a lot better. Well, it is for seeing anyway. Sometimes those little crucian lookalikes can give you the tiniest of little bites. They're very much like crucians back in the UK, or indeed F1s. Tiny, tiny little bites. There's a proper bite, wasn't it? Oh, he's off, look. Whoa, fish, look at that. I'll lift the pole up a bit higher than I normally would so you can see it, but there's a lot of elastic coming out there. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's some branches in that piece of water just down to my right. It's been a bit windy lately. Come on. Took off well, didn't he, eh? Oh, he's a reasonable fish. Great size for match fishing, these. Come on, don't go down to that way. I want to try and keep that for fishing in. Come on. And be so careful over here because they'll try and jump out of your net on you. That one's a little bit bigger, probably in the, well, I can not quite get my hands around him, so he's probably in the 3-pound range. If we're going to be catching those slightly bigger ones, I'm going to try the 10mm punch. Got a 14 hook on, so that'll be fine. And depending again on how things go, I might end up just putting either 2 8mm on or whatever. It's just sort of try the changes really. As I say, this isn't a commercial, there aren't any over here. So there are nowhere near as many fish in here as you would find in a commercial. And so the bites tend to come fairly steadily, but there are times when they will literally just spook and die off, and then you have to wait around for a while and just build your swim again. And I suppose that would be the same as any natural venue anywhere in the world. Hey! Take him out of the way of the baited area. Try and keep him away from that one. Normally I'd have fished on the inside down there, but you can't see that on the camera, so that's why I've chosen to go down that way today. There are some reeds in the water down there that I could have used for cover, just like there are here. Not a huge fish, eh? But just goes to show, even these smaller fish, where is he? Are perfectly happy to take a 10mm chunk of bread, and that's probably half a pound or so. And in fact, he swallowed it. Because the wind's getting up a little, and in fact the wind is supposed to be coming from that direction, but it's coming that way, I'm just going to turn these into a bit more of a squeezed ball this time. Not much, just enough to make sure it goes down to the bottom a bit quicker. Really, you shouldn't have that much sticking out, but as long as I'm careful on the way out, I'll be fine. If you're not sure, don't do that. Just fill it to the top of the pot. But you can see how this stuff will throw as well. So if you're fishing with a waggler, you can make this work just as easily as you can on the pole. There we go. Turned out to be a nice day, isn't it? Pretty sure that's a bite. Yeah, I thought it was. Another one of those crucian lookalikes. There's hardly any kind of bite, really. But yeah, you can see now by feeding my way in, or feeling my way in with the feed, it's a slightly bigger crucian lookalike. You can build the swim quite nicely. I know you didn't get to see this on the zoom camera, folks, but I just had a bit of a slowdown in bites. This is a decent enough fish. Bit of a slowdown in bites over the baited area. So what I did, I just moved the tackle just this is a bit better. I just moved the rig a little bit further off to the right, probably a good couple of feet or more, and had a bite fairly quickly actually. And sometimes what happens, especially on natural venues, is that the fish will stand off the baited area a little bit once you've caught a few. And again, he's not massive. He's sort of a good sort of match size fish, which is great. Come on, fish. Come on, in you come. They don't give up, these fish over here at all. So he tried to climb out of the net again. And that's what they do. This one, probably, well, I can't get my hand around him, so he's probably 3.5 to 4 pounds, which is pretty good actually, isn't it? I'll just get him back, and I'm going to carry on fishing now. I'm enjoying myself today, especially in this nice bit of sunshine. But hopefully you've enjoyed the video, and also I hope you've learned some stuff from it. As I said right at the start, this was never going to be anything complicated. This is just a cheap, effective, simple method. Most of all, cheap. So I've got probably £1.50's worth of bait in the UK, close to $3 here in Australia, and I've still got a fair bit of bait left in there, and I can always steal some more out of the loaf in the bread bin at home if I want some more hook bait. But really, that's it. As I say, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, click the like button. If you want to subscribe, that's great. And if you want to contribute, that's even better. Once again, see you next time, and thanks for watching.